Hey guys, I know what you're thinking, that I'm making a crazy video here, um, but I'm not. I actually thought I'd give y'all kind of a treat. What I've got here is actually a perfectly legal rifle. It's got a 16.5-inch barrel on it and everything. This is a 300 Blackout Savage Axis. Now, I guess you couldn't necessarily say that it's a Savage Axis per se, because it's just built on that action. But like I said, it's perfectly legal. Has a 16.5-inch barrel. The full length is actually still legal. Everything on there is still within the ATF standards and everything. But I'll give you a little tech deal on this. This started out as a 223. Savage Axis is like a $250–$270 rifle. You bought it from Walmart. I get to looking around on some forums and stuff where people are talking about rebarreling 223 bolt actions to where they would be able to run this really popular round, the 300 Blackout. Now, the cool thing is a lot of people, or actually I should say, before the cool thing, a lot of people would say, what is the point in putting a 300 Blackout into a bolt action, considering, it's kind of a round that everybody started in ARs, just because you can fit everything into a 223 magazine. It doesn't take a lot to change. You just change out the barrel, the gas system, and you're pretty much done. It's everything else works. The bolt, the whole lower, everything works the same. It's just the difference in the actual round itself, and the barrel, obviously, and the gas system. The whole point to me doing this is just to be different. Yeah, it's a small round. It's like a carbine 300 Blackout, but it still packs a lot of punch. And it's like a AK round. It's 7.62 by 39 into a bolt action. You just got that 30 caliber round, but in a really small package. Instead of a 308 or 30-06 or 300 Win Mag. But back to the rifle in here. I got kind of away from there. When I first thought of it, when I first started thinking about doing this, we're like, what is the reason behind it? Well, it's because you can use this rifle to hunt with. It's got plenty of power, whatever. The real reason is, you get kind of tired of carrying around a huge rifle whenever you're going out into the woods to hunt, and they have plenty of hunting rounds. You can reload hunting rounds with them, 150 grains or anything that's a hollow point or whatever, which I'll show some different ammo that we've loaded than one that we haven't, because we can actually get a hold of it. Finally, and it's an awesome looking round. But the real reason behind this rifle is it's more like a ranch rifle, or more like a bush rifle. It's something that your whole family could use. Your kids could pick it up real easily. It doesn't have a lot of recoil. It's actually really freaking accurate, especially with the 150 grain Sierra hollow point bow tails. But the cool thing about it, like I said, it started out as a Savage. I can't remember the brand on the barrel. It was a 16.5-inch barrel. I got it from got it off the internet for like it was like $3 something. A lot of people would ask, why would you do that? Remington's got the Micro 7, went together with the AC, and you've also got the H&R partner kind of rifle. It has this chambered in 300 Blackouts. It'll break one shot. Did it to be different, and we still save some money doing it this way. It's not a Remington. Some people, Remington's not a bad deal. We just personally like Savage rifles too. So the Savage action, to me, is one of the most perfect actions. It's just everybody can pick it up and mess with it, and it's not, doesn't have any real special parts or nothing or whatever. It's kind of the same thing with Remington, but we're just real partial to Savage. Everybody has their own choice. But I just wanted to kind of point out this rifle because it's just a lot of fun. You know, it's something almost the way you can reload these rounds and how cheap you can reload them, because they just take 223 primers and 223 old cases, and you know, just your standard 308 bullets sometimes, and then they have the special bullets that are made for 300 Blackout because they're a little bit lower velocities. But the, I mean, it's just, this little gun is just awesome. And you know, you look at it and you're like, it looks like something a little kid would use. Why would you use that? It's just easy to carry around. It'd be an awesome hog gun if we ever get a chance to actually go hunting for, you know, pigs or feral hogs or whatever. 300 Blackout's a perfect round for that, just because how much punch it has, even at, you know, a little bit of a distance, you know, 300-400 yards. It has a lot of drop, obviously, because it has less powder. It actually uses pistol powder instead of the standard rifle powder, and it has, you know, like 16 grains, 17 grains, some even pump it up to 20 grains. But the cool thing about this is, you know, it's a magazine gun. Has a detachable magazine, holds, I believe, 3 or 4 rounds. They, you know, just for example, 300 Blackout round, this is a 223 magazine. Still fits in there just like it would an AR, you know, same stuff. I'm not going to put this in the gun, back in the gun with a round in it. But that's just kind of a example there for you that, you know, it's just a different type of gun. I mean, you see people all day with 308s and, you know, 30-06 and, you know, blah, 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 just every of those common rounds. This one, yeah, it's more of a, here, I'll just flip this out instead of kind of going with the flow of everything. It's something to throw a wrench into the machine there. Just something different, something small, something compact that you can run around when you go hunting or you go in the woods. You can take with you on walks or whatever if you need something that's got a lot of punch but in a smaller package. And I mean, it's a fairly decent rifle. You know, that I guess my only complaint about this little rifle is, you know, it's not a high-end gun. So like the stock that it comes in is it's a flimsy stock. It's not meant to be whatever. But like I said, it's just supposed to be a simple gun, or a small gun you can take out and, you know, you can teach your kids how to shoot with this. 300 Blackout's not that loud of a round. It's not that hard of kicking around. But you know, this is an extremely accurate gun. So, you know, you can actually take it out, shoot, and like I said, you can reload the stuff, and it's a fairly cheap. Ammo-wise, once you reload it, I mean, if you buy them, they're like $30 to $40 a box, and then, you know, subsonics are even more, or the specialized, you know, I think it's Lehigh Defense controlled chaos rounds. You know, they're like $60, or sometimes you get it for $40, and it just depends on, you know, what type of round. But kind of back to the gun on here, we just put a standard elastic sling on there from Walmart. You know, I guess you could call this like a Walmart budget 300 Blackout build if you will, because that's really what it ends up being. The only thing that's not from Walmart was the barrel that we got off online. And I know if you look real close in the video, I don't know if I can zoom that, but I'll pick it up here and I'll show you. But that barrel's actually threaded for a muzzle brake, and with that also kind of, it's threaded just like a 308 rifle, you know, AR, whatever the standard thread is on those. But I believe it's 5/8 by 24. Anyway, the point is that if you wanted to, you could run a suppressor on this rifle. You know, that enables you to do that hog hunting, to do that, you know, whatever. And the fact that it has that little bit shorter barrel, it doesn't, you know, give you that extra huge extension of a suppressor on there. You get the AAC breakout brake on there. That may only give it an extra inch or 2 inches to come out there, and then you've got your suppressor that'll just ratchet on there, and that gun, you know, overall length is surprisingly short compared to, you could say, like a standard 308 where it's, you know, a 22, 24, 26 inch barrel. You know, like I said, it's a 16.5 inch barrel. You're not gonna, you're not going to be reaching out there that far, and you're going to be able to throw it up real quick just to, catch what you're hunting or whatever. And even the scope is just a cheap Walmart scope. So I mean, this gun is mainly just to be a budget, run-of-the-mill, bolt-action, fun gun. And I said we put a bipod on there. It's a little shorter bipod, extends out, does all the stuff on there. It's just standard sling. I didn't put a muzzle brake on it yet, just because I just hadn't got to it. I'm sure here in the next little bit we will. There is only one drawback of if you just were to buy the rifle and put the barrel on it. There is a ejection issue that comes with a 300 Blackout round in this type of action with the bolt combination and everything, because of how short the spent case is. Now, I'm obviously not going to be able to show you because I don't want to load around inside of the house. That's just not good. And you should never really do that unless you really absolutely have to. If you're in danger, it's either a hole in the wall or your life. So I mean, obviously, a hole in the wall and no more intruder is the obvious one on that one. But that can be fixed. It's a $12 part. What it basically does is it modifies the extractor and the ejector to be able to just fling that case out of there, because the case is actually just too short for whenever it comes out of the chamber. It'll just tap against the side and it'll pop out of the extractor. So that's really the only downfall. But like on this one, it hasn't been done yet. It's on its way. It's going to take a little bit to get here. Anything to do with guns still is going to take a while to get here. But another cool thing about this is when you reload the rounds, you've got a wide range of different options. I mean, you've got, just for example, I'll pull one up at a time here. I've got, this one here is a 150 grain Hornady SST. No, this one may be an AMAX. Either way, it's one of their 150 grain ballistic tips. Now, some people would say the heavier bullets aren't going to expand the way they should in this round because of the velocity. Because the 308 round is meant to expand at a lot faster rate of speed. That's why I kind of chose the ballistic tip, because that way, that may, in my opinion, it may help it expand once it hits. Now also I have some of our other custom reloads here. This is a Sierra 135 grain bow-tailed hollow point match king. They do pretty well. They're a good accuracy bullet. They'll still kill anything you're shooting at. They're hollow point, so you can still use them. They may not expand as much because they're a tighter hollow point. They're not this wide open gap, which I'll show you here in a second. One that will expand most definitely, but it goes a lot faster too. So I mean, it's understandable. But that was 135 grain, and then I've got this is a 125 grain. It's not a boat-tailed. It's a 125 grain, I believe. I forgot the name of the actual bullet, but I know it's a hollow point. It's a real, fine tipped hollow point. But that was 125 grain. It moves a little bit quicker. Once you get into the lighter bullets, it's obviously going to pound out some higher speeds. But this one is what I was going to show you. This is a hollow point 110 grain. If you notice, the hollow point's significantly bigger on that, the actual opening. It's filled with lead in there, so it's going to split right open. It goes a lot faster. It goes like 2,000, 2,100. I don't try to push the limits on our reloads on 300 Blackout just because I'm not trying to, get as fast as possible. Whatever works. And it just happened that, the first couple loads that we did on those, they worked just fine, accuracy-wise. I haven't shot an animal with them yet. And modern gun season's still like a month away for us in Arkansas. Or a little bit less than a month. But the cool thing about the reloading the rounds and everything is any common 308 cartridge will go in there. Your 147 grain military surplus rounds that have been pulled out of them. You can put them in there. Any 308 pretty much you can put in there. You know, once you get into the heavier ones, you start kind of getting to where you want to load subsonic, because the length of the actual projectile itself is too long to get almost supersonic with remaining into the actual max overall length of the bullet. So you don't want to make it, you know, 170, 180, 190 grain, 220, 240 grain, which I've seen those and they're ridiculous, because the bullet is actually longer than the case itself. And it's amazing to me that they actually still load those things. They don't expand, they're not going to, but they're there for the subsonic part of it. I don't see me using the subsonics in this thing unless I ever get a suppressor, which would be cool, and then it's like quiet, almost as quiet as a 22 is what it seems like. But, you know, those reloaded rounds, they are, you know, the real benefit of it in the 300 Blackout. You can select pretty much a huge, wide range of bullets. You know, like I said, 110s on all the way up. And, you know, you can use lead cast bullets. You can use whatever you want. Lead nose. It's just like loading a 308, but you're using the cut down 223 case that's been resized to a, you know, the 30 caliber bullet. Now, a lot of people say it's been sized down. It's all it basically is, just resized, whatever. Now, that's another cool thing about it, is that all the components are common components that you can use. So I mean, even when owning this little rifle that's odd, if you load a 308 and you have all the bullets for 308s, if you load 223s, which most people have both of those rounds, they'll use common deals in between. The only real difference is the powder, the types of powder, because like I said before, they use pistol powder. Now they use a certain type, like a higher burning, faster burning pistol powder, like H110, 4227, A1680. Some even use Winchester 296. Everybody's different on the type of powder they use, the type of powder they trust. All these are loaded with 4227. I haven't worked up any H110 loads. I've done one 1680 load with the 150 grain hollow point boat tails. I just haven't, you know, there's no reason to break into powder that you don't have unless you powder that you have, really. I mean, it's a good scientific thing to do, but I don't like just opening powder and going through and changing out your powder distributor and everything and blah 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 back and forth. I just like to stick with one powder, be able to do it, and then load all those rounds. And then once you're out of that powder, or if you can't get that powder, you have the extra powder that you have worked up a load before, or, you know, the H110's on the way. But I do have another round, and this is a store-bought round. All those other ones, you know, I've put extra work into, and probably more work than I should have, making them look nice and whatever. All of our reloaded rounds look like that. You know, they go through two different cleaning processes where we use, once we fire them, deprime them and resize them, put them into actually stainless tumbler, and then, which is actually, I've got to put into a video because it's actually a great money saver on the way I do it rather than buying their whole kit, because their whole kit's like $300. But anyway, whole nother video. You go back to the cleaning, do the stainless. That takes a while. Once you're done with the stainless, that's a wet cleaning and polishing, and then you dry them, and I'll go ahead and I throw them into the regular tumbler, like a vibratory tumbler, to make sure they're absolutely dry before I start putting powder and primer in them, because I don't want to ruin primers. You know, that it gets expensive. You start ruining stuff and go back and forth, and you know, we have to make each one of these cases. I know it sounds like I'm saying like, oh, we have to make each one, but the point is that, you know, we put so much into those and make them look good. It takes a lot of time. You know, a lot of times with 300 Blackout, you know, it would be easier just to go buy them, but that's where we get to this round. You know, this is a 110 grain Barnes TAC TX bullet. It's a mean looking bullet. It's a, like I said, it's 110 grains, but it's got a tip on there, and this is not the standard ballistic tip, like you would think. This thing um, is it's a round that allows the plastic tip goes in first to keep your bullet from hitting the flesh or whatever and expanding too early. What it'll do is that black tip will go in there and it may break off, or it may go cram down on the bullet and help it expand, but what it allows it to do is just puncture further. That bullet may actually go completely through after that black tip breaks the actual first shock of it hitting the flesh. It's kind of like if you you jumped off of a bridge and you were going to hit water from a certain height. Water from that high may be just like concrete, but if you hit it with distortion, say something hit the water before, rocks or whatever, an object hit the water before and it disrupted that surface, it would allow you to fall into a disrupted, not so hard surface. Still gonna suck if you're doing jump off a bridge, but the point is that kind of disrupts the area before the bullet hits, so it doesn't expand preemptively or whatever. But that one is just a mean round. These are for 20 in a box. They're like $30. That's where the good thing comes from reloading, because you can cut down on that price so much. People look at reloading as sometimes it's expensive, or it can get expensive. If you get into multiple rounds, yeah, it does get expensive. If you got your 308, 223, 22, 250, 243, if you're reloading 7.62 by 54, 30-06, if you're reloading all these calibers, you got all these different powders, yeah, it's going to be expensive. That's just how it is. But if you stick to main ones like 9mm, 45, some of those cases share primers. Some of them will be small primers. Some of the Federals seem like they come out and they're small primers. So you could possibly just buy, if you just bought Federal small primered rounds, shot them, reloaded them with pistol small primers, you could eliminate the need for large pistol primers. So there's stuff like a 300 Blackout it's not necessarily an extra round. It's more along the lines of using common components to do it, and that's the whole idea behind just building one of these. Is it's not necessarily like, God, I got to get another caliber, got to get all the parts. Aside from the dies, you've pretty much got the dies and the powder. I guess you've pretty much got everything you need to reload it once you've started reloaded 223s and at least 308s, because you'll have all the extra 308 bullets. You can go up to Sierra in Sedalia, Missouri, their actual factory, and they've got these bullets up there that are called seconds, and they're not necessarily, they'll say seconds on them, like, they could be an off color, and if you might notice on like the 125 grain, well, maybe not. Let's see, let's try the 135. Some of them are good. Some of these bullets are a little bit darker than the case. They're not shined up a whole lot. This case had a lot of work put into it, but the color might have been off or something. But you go through, you weigh them, you inspect them before you put them in there. But that place up there, the little like second shop, you can't resell them, but you can buy their bullets by the pound, and that's where it ends up saving you so much. You may get say 60 bullets for a pound, and it may only be $10. And there may be a couple that are, we've only found 2 or 3 that had, that lead didn't get into them. They were like on the end of a line. And, still even with that one that was off, it doesn't add any, you may still have another bullet in there that, it may not thrown the weight off that much. Or we found one that just didn't get finished or whatever, and you throw them away, you put them, whatever. Some of the lead tip ones may have a little piece of lead, and what they do up there is if they find one, because they go through so many bullets, if they find a certain amount of bullets that are bad in that whole deal, they will throw out the whole can of bullets. And this whole build, I know it's a new round, and it's a weird gun because it's a real short gun, but the whole build is on saving money on certain rounds. 308's kind of expensive to load because it uses a lot of powder, but a 300 Blackout, you use like 16 grains most of the time. Like most of these are 16 or 17 grains, and you divide that by 7,000 grains, which is how much is in just a regular pound of powder, and you end up with a lot of bullets. If you a pound of powder for this would cost $20-$30 depending on if they're jacking up the prices or not. If you've got a pretty reliable gun source, you a lot of times, or reloaded supply source, a lot of times they won't jack that up because they know if they jack it up they'll lose your business. But that's where this whole thing came from, is building a rifle that has a strong punch that can be carried compact and not have to carry a whole lot of ammo with you, or even then, if you took a 223, which a 223 is a good round, don't get me wrong, you can kill a deer with a 223, the right spot, right ammunition, all that stuff comes into play, but you still end up carrying around the rifle, which may have a 20-inch barrel on it. And that's another thing about this, is the way the ballistic coefficient goes on with the barrel. Like when we first started thinking about building this, we were like, well, we want like an 18-inch or a 20-inch barrel, target barrel. Now, that's kind of the cool thing about a 300 Blackout. The explanation that we got from the guys that we bought the barrel from, because I did a lot of homework on this beforehand, and I was like, is it necessary to have a long barrel or whatever? And they said, actually, in a 300 Blackout, because the way the round works, it's so backwards. It's like if you have a 16-inch barrel in 300 Blackout. Now, some people may know better on this. Whatever, this is the way my understanding is. The 16-inch barrel on a 300 Blackout, they said was equivalent to a 28-inch barrel on a 223. That's what they said the difference was. Now, whether that's extreme or not, I don't know. I know that at 50, 100, even 200 yards, this deal will punch holes through the same hole. And it's only a 16-inch barrel, and that may be the good thing about the cartridge, and that may be the new development that they have with guns. Instead of having these huge cartridges, 338 Lapua, these, well, I shouldn't say 338 Lapua, 223, 308, the stuff that are huge rounds with a lot of powder that are pumping out speed, that are, they got to go way out there to hit them. Maybe that's the new deal with guns, is these carbine type cartridges that are going to become probably more popular. I don't think a lot of people at a lot of companies have studied that much on them on the carbine idea, because I've seen it where a carbine 9mm will punch out faster feet per second because of the longer barrel, and that's obviously because there's a bigger area for more powder to burn in that space to allow the bullet to move faster. It's, instead of a 4-inch barrel barely having enough to push it out to 900 feet, 1,000 feet, whatever feet per second, you've got a 16-inch barrel that'll allow it to burn a lot longer, and that gas to push the bullet a lot further in the barrel itself. So, that's what I like about this round, and that's where kind of the idea came from on building this rifle. Because besides the fact that I think it's an awesome looking gun, it's just different. It is a black action and a black gun with a stainless barrel, which is weird. It's different, but it's just cool. It's a cheap gun that shoots absolutely good, and I don't care what anybody says about these little center point scopes. They do just fine for what we have to do. So there's no reason to throw a $400,000, $800,000 scope on a $600 gun that's not what it's built for. It's not built for a huge scope to go on there. It would just look stupid with a scope that's as long as the barrel. So, or even if it was a short scope, why would I spend more on the scope than I would on the whole rifle? and it's also people's personal choice. But you know, I've kind of rambled on for quite a while. It's like a 30-minute video, but I just thought I'd show you all this, being a awesome little small gun. You know, if y'all have any questions about, you know, what we put in there, I can look up the information on what the barrel is that we ordered, and you know, whenever I get the kit in to fix the ejection issue that I had, you know, I'll go do a shooting video on it. And you know, it only holds, like I said, 3 or 4 rounds. It's not meant to be an assault type weapon at all. It's a hunting gun. It's a take your kids out and have fun. Because you know, when you reload these rounds, you can reload them for like $8 a box compared to $40 a box or $30 a box. And you know, if you load them 50 at a time, that's a savings of, let's see, you know, God, that's half the price, or you know, a quarter of the price compared to what you could load match grade bullets for. But anyway, I've made this video extremely long compared to what my other videos are. But I just thought I'd give you a cool little view of that awesome gun. You know, it's, oh, maybe I'll pull it up there, let you see a pretty close view here. It's a interesting looking little cap there, to thread cap to put on there, but it's a little bipod. Like I said, a standard sling with that detachable magazine in the stock. Let's get a standard trigger on there. That's not, you know, it's decent, but you know, it's not too bad. But like I said, I just thought I'd do that while I was making the other video, because I knew it would take a long time to upload that other one, and it's going to take a long time to upload this one. But if y'all have any questions, just put in the comments and I'll answer them. And you know, always subscribe and make some cool stuff. I'll be making some shooting videos sometimes, as long as things don't, you know, stuff doesn't hit the fan and whatever we can come up with, we'll make videos on it. But just thank y'all and keep watching.